I like the little the little harmony that you put into the syncing. That
Th-
was
Thank you. I I've been playing some music again recently, so it's back in me.
oh cool. Well, I'm glad that you have found the music once again. Have a song in your heart and a spring in your step. Not unlike the Cloud9 fans, we're actually at kind of a low point, and that's what we're here to talk about. Welcome to Bodied.
Hello,
To,
hello, hello.
Tonight we'll be discussing more CSGO turmoil after another poor event performance. Rocket League bursting through the Northern Arena NA Invitational. London Spitfire's increasing turbulence. I suppose you maybe actually called a nosedive at this point. And our thoughts on MSI 2018. I'm Havokpus, joined by Frozencreek. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing okay. I'm doing well in my new apartment. Just looking at more options to do with the stream and with everyone in the Bodied and Spitfire community. So if you have any ideas, I guess hit me up.
Yes, we're always looking to expand our brand. We may I've been wanting to do this for a little while, but we may do like game streams or something, or we may try to do just fun stuff with each other outside of podcasting, so we can be more active. We don't know. We'll figure it out later. But today, Frozen, we're going to talk about some stuff, and our first point is CS:GO and the really bad performance at the ESL Season 7 playoffs in Dallas. It was not good.
No, I think it's kind of been the theme with Cloud9 in the past couple months that we just haven't been good enough, and this is just another example of our team going up on stage and not performing.
I mean, I think I remember watching an interview with Valens shortly after the Dallas tournament and when they exited, and Valens basically said, yeah, the team just isn't really gelling well with FNS yet. Everyone's still kind of uncomfortable, and we just really don't know what to do. We're still trying to work it out, and we're looking to do something. So I think I'm glad that he at least acknowledges that the team is still having problems, and they are able to recognize that, okay, we know what we're doing wrong. We just need to figure out how to make it right again. And that does kind of fill me with some optimism, but it's definitely going to be a long road considering how they played. They got destroyed by FaZe Clan, which I guess is to be expected with a very new, shaky roster. And when they got to losers bracket, they just looked not good. They almost lost to Sharks. Like, if you watch that game, the first map, which I believe was on Mirage, they looked like they had no idea what was going on. It was befuddling to watch Cloud9 CSGO play just that poorly. I mean, they eventually played better in the next two maps and won, but the level of play they displayed during the Sharks match was not acceptable. And I think that's something that really needs to be addressed and looked at, when you're playing against a team that, I mean, I haven't even heard of. I didn't even know that there was a team called Sharks. Sharks Esports. I didn't even know that existed. I think they were definitely one of the lower tier CSGO teams, and to just completely play like that and to just play at such a poor level, I think is not good. And then they lost to Heroic. Not as bad of a fashion, but it was still somewhat of a bad game. And I mean, that the whole playoffs in general, they looked like they were just kind of stumbling around. They didn't really have a good idea of what to do. Just a lot of really weird mistakes and a lot of really poor play as a whole, I guess. But the Sharks match definitely was the extreme low point of that whole tournament.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I feel like the perfect encapsulation of the whole tournament was when Cloud9 lost to a full Glock eco on Mirage against Heroic. Seeing that was kind of like oh, that's kind of what this tournament is going to be like, because they ended up going on and losing a bunch of consecutive rounds, which basically cost them the whole series. So that and the Sharks game, that was just kind of peak last 6 months Cloud9.
Yeah, I remember that happening, and that's definitely not what you want to see. I mean, Cloud9 has always sort of had this weird like this weird trait where like they lose to ecos, but when they have guns, or like when they're eco themselves, or if it's full guns, they play a lot better. I don't know what it is. Maybe they underestimate the playing ability of the other team when they're at like their weakest point, and so they make like maybe cockier moves. Tarek, I think definitely. I think it was actually during the heroic match he made some just really questionable decisions that he really didn't need to make, and a lot of them cost us the match. And like I said, just really poor play. I don't know what they need to do. I mean, if they're not implementing FNS's shot calling system, and if they're not implementing his strats yet, why even have him on the team? Wouldn't it be better to get someone else and just let Tarek continue to be the IGL? I would really like to see the team actually implement it, and maybe with this period of time that they have off in between tournaments, they actually have some time off. Maybe they can just kind of get their heads back together, have a little vacay, and then come back and actually work on FNS saying like, okay, I'm the top dog, I am the leader, I say jump, you say how high, and then work from there. I think maybe the people that are on the chopping block right now are FNS and Skadoodle. FNS because he is sort of the new addition, and I'm not sure if he's really bringing anything to the table, and Skadoodle because he's been playing for a while, and his play has been very inconsistent as of late. Sometimes he'll be, Skadaddy, and other times he will just be Skadoodle, not really hitting shots and really struggling to make an impact. What?
Can we call a bad Skadoodle a Skapoodle? Like
Skapoodle? It sounds more like a dog version of him.
Okay, I think that works too, right?
Yeah, I mean it's very cute. I would love to actually see if someone can draw a poodle version of Skadoodle, maybe wearing like a Cloud9 tank top. I would love you forever.
I'll give you 10,000 points.
Yes, all of the points.
You'll be the first one with points.
Yes.
But yeah, I do think you do bring up a valid point. Like, this team has been together, I mean, a certain amount of time, and you can say that they don't have chemistry. You can say they haven't had enough practice time, but when it comes down to it, like, being on stage is better practice than practice should be. I mean, it's not, because you can't work on some of the fundamental aspects that you can in practice, but being on stage is when you do gain a lot of chemistry, and you do have time to work things out, because it's a do or die moment, and you have to decide on the spot what you're going to do. And I'm not sure. I do think that this team does need a 2-week break and just practice and have a couple days off, but I'm not sure if that's going to solve the problems that they're facing. I think that they do need to make a commitment and just live with the results, whether that's FNS's system, or if that's a dual system, or if they're just going to stay with Tarek's. But I think right now we can all agree that it's just not working.
Yeah, I think that their problems are a lot more ingrained into that. I think that, a few weeks isn't going to fix it. I think it might need months. I proposed, I remember when ESL finished and there was some talk about what was going on, I proposed giving FNS to like the end of the year. Just give the team until the end of the year. If they haven't made any progress, then you can just start whacking off heads and trying to get the best players that you can with the amount of money you have. But we'll have to wait and see. Some other news before we switch to Rocket League. Cloud9 has announced that they have dropped out of ESL 1 New York in favor of the Blast Pro Series in Istanbul. Now, they were originally supposed to go to both, but the Pro Series in Istanbul was pushed back to around the same date as ESL 1 New York because of this snap election that was happening in Turkey. So when faced with the decision of playing in either New York or Istanbul, the team made the decision to go to Istanbul because I believe Tarık's parents are from Turkey, and he wanted to play kind of in his home country, or their home country, and he really wanted to do that. I've seen several tweets of him saying he wanted to do that, so I think it mostly just came down to him and the team saying like, okay, well, what are we gonna do? And he really made this push to favor Istanbul over New York. I believe the prize pool is even about the same, so they're not really losing anything. It's just that they had to make an either or decision.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for the boys to play in front of a different audience too. So I think it's cool. I think that they'll enjoy Istanbul, and Tark will enjoy seeing his family again. So I think it's a fine move. There's probably a little less pressure too. So and they get a cool trip out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think it's a good move because there will definitely be a lot less competition at the tournament in Istanbul versus ESL New York. I think ESL New York, there's like Team Liquid's going to be there. I think maybe like FaZe Clan is going to be there. A lot of the other really top name, teams from America and Europe, and maybe Brazil if like SK and I guess just SK goes. So this kind of gives them a chance to work out some kinks and try some stuff out in I guess more of like a lower stakes environment and like reputation wise. So I think I agree. I think this is a good move. I think this will definitely maybe take some pressure off their shoulders to try to perform in front of North American crowd and a very highly talented environment. So I agree. But moving on to Rocket League. So Rocket League participated in the Northern Arena 2 NA Invitational. I know that's a mouthful, but they actually lost their first match to Splice 03. I actually wasn't able to watch this because I was driving up to Arkansas to view apartments because I got a job and I'm in the process of moving. But
how far is Arkansas from where you are in Alabama?
It's like 6 hours.
And you drove up to look at apartments. Did you find anything?
Yeah. I have an apartment all lined up and everything. So that's I guess the first step in moving is finished.
Oh, when do you move?
In a couple weeks.
Pardon?
A couple weeks.
Nice. All right. We'll talk about it at
later.
The end or beginning of next podcast instead of in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, this is a really awkward spot, but so they actually lost their first game to Splice 03, but Cloud9 was like, oh, silly us, we didn't fill up our car all the way. We were running low on gas. We were running on fumes. They fueled up and proceeded to murder the rest of the losers bracket. They beat Allegiance, they beat Dignitas, they beat FlyQuest, they beat G2, and all in pretty dominant fashion, which is pretty great because G2, FlyQuest, and NRG are the other, I would say, really strong Rocket League teams in North America. And to beat, 2 out of the 3 of them in pretty convincing fashion is really nice to see. Especially after G2 actually handed Cloud9 the loss and forced us to play the third place match in the RLCS finals. So they beat G2 and then they played against NRG in the finals and they got second. So going into the final actual invitational tournament, we're the second seed. But I think that's really good. I think second place is great. We beat a lot of our other rivals. We beat G2, which I think is a pretty great accomplishment. So I think that's a pretty successful tournament. I don't know about you, Frozen.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't have too much to add. I think you covered almost all the bases. G2's been kind of a thorn in our side, and I don't remember the last time we beat them specifically, but beating them now is pretty much a big deal, and the height of their performances this week could win them a lot of tournaments in the future. So I'm hoping that is something they can keep up with.
Yeah, for sure. I remember after the World Championships, Rocket League had a little break, had a little break. But yeah, they came back to the RLCS. They played really well for the most part. They unfortunately lost to G2, and took them out of the finals for the season 5 championship. But they've been, outside of that, they were playing really good. I really like the Rocket League team. I think they show, when they're on and they actually get into a really good groove, they play amazing. I think it's one of Cloud9's more consistent teams, which is really good. So yeah, I'm really happy that they're continuing to perform well and perform at a level that I think a lot of fans expect from them. Now, switching to a team that does not perform at the level fans expect them to, the London Spitfire. Stage 4 started up again, and London came out and just had another bad start. They faced the Houston Outlaws and just got demolished 0-4. I mean, this was not London Spitfire play. This was just incredibly sloppy, all over the place, scattered play. Birdring played well, but it took him a while to ramp up. I think for the first half, he wasn't really doing that great. And then the next match, they lose 1-3 to NYXL, but the NYXL match was actually very close. Like, if you look at the actual map scores, it's very close. So it's not like London got completely stomped. It was an extremely close match, and NYXL was just able to get over that hump. But yeah, an 0-2 week starting a stage again, not a good sign for London.
No, it was definitely not the peak of their performance. The only good thing, I guess you can say, is that the Outlaw are kind of their kryptonite. So I guess I don't want to say it was expected they would lose, but it's kind of a recurring theme at this point, sadly. And NYXL, sorry, is probably unarguably the best team in Overwatch League right now. So, while I think the 0-2 is disappointing, I think that we are going to fare okay against some of the other teams out there, and I don't think we're going to lose our playoff spot.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault them for losing NYXL, especially since it was, they made it extremely competitive, despite, again, the match score being 1-3. For the Houston Outlaws, I kind of have to wag my finger at them because this is a team that you've played multiple times before. At this point, you should be able to craft a counter strategy to how they play. You should be able to look at the meta, you should be able to look at how they play and go, okay, here's how we think they're going to go, we're going to play like this. And then, with the amount of talent they have, they should be able to do something with it. But time and time again, it seems that they're just not able to do enough to actually beat the Outlaws. And this especially, before we would lose to Outlaws like 2-3, would be very close. This was just an outright stomp, and that's something that really shouldn't happen, I think, with, on paper, Spitfire versus Outlaws. Spitfire should win. And, they're just not getting there. And it's just really frustrating to watch because, you would think that the team would be able to adapt, and the team clearly just is too slow to adapt to meta changes as well as in-game changes in how a team is acting and how you respond. Because London consistently, and if you want me to hear me ramble some more about London Spitfire, go check out the dogfight. I ramble on that a lot too. But yeah, just London really slow to react. They'll play Widow even when Widow isn't working, and they'll just continue to commit to the Widow, even though it's like, guys, you're doing nothing with the Widow. You're not getting any kills. Birdring is constantly dying. Please put him on something else.
To be honest, I feel like the Widowmaker has never really worked for the Spitfire. I feel like the only style they're really comfortable playing is 4 tanks or just a dive comp, and if there's any alterations to it, they just kind of crumble.
I think London actually did pretty well with triple tank defenses, like on Junkertown.
Triple tank, yeah, sorry, and not quadruple tank.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of leads us to the next point. They
Yeah.
came out with a roster announcement yesterday, meaning Tuesday. It's Wednesday today that we're recording the podcast. So, can you run us down what happened?
I would be glad to. So, London, almost out of nowhere, announced that Tizzy, Hagapen, Wuhyol, and Hureg were being moved to an inactive listing, and so they basically wouldn't be playing for the rest of the stage, and they would basically be looking to either wait until their contracts run out or get them to play for another team. And this is all kind of alarming, considering considering how London has been playing and everything. Actually, reading Susie's the GM, after reading Susie's posts on threads and sort of explaining the situation, it makes a lot of sense. Hagapen's not going to play because Bedoshin's just the better Zen. Hureg is really going to play because Bergring is just better. Hureg only played in Stage 3 because Bergring was actually hurt. Wuhyol, he has this very different playstyle from Fury, but they're feeling like Fury is the better fit because he can be more flexible. Wuhyol can really only play D.Va. Fury can play a bunch of other heroes that would kind of help Spitfire be more flexible. As for Tizzy, I'm actually really quite sad. I think Tizzy would have been a really good fit for Spitfire. I don't like how Jester plays sometimes. I think Jester is very off and on. He just sometimes does really deep dives. He sometimes just gets too far from his team, and he really throws off the coordination of, which would be kind of a well-oiled machine. I think Tizzy would have maybe brought in a different playstyle to maybe help with some of their coordination issues, but Tizzy didn't even get to play one map even, and now they're shipping him back off. But they basically said that they don't like that all these other players are just kind of sitting around. The whole switching thing really throws off coordination, and so now they're just committing to this very lean 7-man roster, and they're gonna try to make it work for the rest of this season, and then season two I would expect that they make a bunch of really fat grabs, some really talented, maybe more flexible, maybe more consistent Korean players for Stage 2. But I've rambled long enough, so give me your take on this, Frozen.
I have a hard time deciding if I think this is a good move or not.
I was the same way.
I think the diversity and ability to bounce ideas and practice together, and even going on stage and messing up together is part of the experience. But I feel like the lack of practice that players seem to be getting is less of the problem, and it just seems to be that they have a fundamental misunderstanding of how to play certain maps and how to play and position in certain comps, and I'm not sure if that's going to be something they can work around with just a solid short lineup, or if it's something that they maybe need to find a new coach or something to work with who has a better fundamental understanding of how the game works and how the players and heroes function together. Because match after match, I'm seeing this the supports just die in situations where they shouldn't, and blown dives and all this stuff, and I'm not 100% sure that this is going to change any of that, but I guess it is good to see them commit to something and stay with it, and then worry about the off-season changes when that comes, as opposed to trying to deal with all of it now. So, in short, I'm not sure, but we'll just have to see, I guess.
Yeah, I think I do agree. I think it's a very mixed bag. I think it does give London a lot more focus in how they practice, instead of having to try to figure out all of these strategies for the different variations of how they can play. It's just, okay, Jester, you're going to be doing this, Birdring, you're going to be doing this, and it's just, you can coordinate strategies a lot easier with a much more simple lineup and a dedicated lineup. I do think that they're too headstrong. I think that most of the time it's just that they think, okay, we just have the superior mechanics, we'll just beat them outright, and they don't really pay attention to what meta changes happened, what in-game adaptations need to be made, anything like that. They just pick to what they want to do and then just run it regardless of if it works or not. And they just keep running into a wall a lot of the time, and I think that maybe you just need to get players who are better at adapting, and that might be what Season 2 is for. We'll have to see. I think the next few games will definitely be a benchmark of how this new, I guess, lean system works, and where the team goes from there. I'm not expecting much anymore out of Spitfire. I think even if they get into playoffs, I don't think they're going to go very far. I think it depends on who they get in playoffs, as well as, if anything happens with this in the meantime. But we'll have to see. We will definitely keep reporting on this because the situation has been made a little bit spicier. But yeah, that's it for Overwatch. Moving on to our final point of League of Legends talk, MSI happened. We know C9 wasn't there, but we always like to talk a little bit about League of Legends. It is sort of a big part of the Cloud9 audience. But MSI was there. It happened. TL disappointed. They got kicked out of groups by Fnatic. I was really sad, especially with the performance they made after being down 1-5. I think was really great. Ole snapped back out of his funk. Doublelift was playing out of his mind, to be honest. And I think Impact was also doing a lot of really good plays, but Fnatic was just able to kick him out, and then I think they lost right after that. But that was kind of hilarious. Do you have any thoughts on the? I think we should talk about the group stage a little bit, and then we can talk about the finals, because I don't think anyone really cares about the semifinals part.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about it. I am kind of surprised with how Team Liquid played. The first week especially, they just completely fell apart. Benching
It was kind of sad to watch.
Yeah, and it was ugly. It just seemed like their understanding of the meta was off, but they did a reverse North American week 2, I guess, and pulled it together for the most part, but it wasn't quite enough to flip the script, and they were eventually knocked out by Fnatic. I think the definite a surprise of the tournament was a Flash Wolves. They lost Karsa. What was it? This year he went to he went to RNG, right?
Yeah, he's the RNG jungler.
Yeah, and they had performed subpar on the international stage the past 2 years with Maple and Karsa, but switching out junglers seemed to be the catalyst to really improve them, at least on an international stage. And I thought that they looked really good, and if it weren't for Uzi going godlike basically throughout the whole tournament, I think Maple would probably be the standout performer.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was really happy to see. I think this is actually probably the best MSI in a while, because Korea looked vulnerable. NA and EU were both fighting really hard to try to see who would go into the playoff stage. Flash Wolves was looking like a real standout. Vietnam, even though they were losing a bunch, they put on a really good show, and they were able to show, I think, that you can still be a really good team without having to sacrifice your playstyle in favor of sort of the Korean approach. And also, RNG showing that China is still a very relevant threat after being a lesser region a little bit for a little while internationally. So it was a really good tournament, I think, and had a lot of really good points that any League of Legends fan would really enjoy.
Oh yeah, I can agree with that. There was a ton to watch. I wasn't 100% in love with the meta, but I think it turned out okay. Kai'Sa proved to be really strong. Uh, was insanely good, and overall it was a blast to watch, and it just kind of makes me more excited for when LCS starts again.
Yeah, and I think I really just want to give Uzi more, another pat on the back because he has been, to really understand what what has been going on with Uzi, he has been trying for years, and I mean years, to win not only in the LPL but at an international event. He has tried so hard and so many times has come up just short. And now he's finally getting the accolades that he has deserved for so long. And I think that it's so great that he can lift these trophies up and finally go, I finally made it. The crowd is cheering my name. I finally got a trophy. And it's just really touching and really great to see that a player of his caliber is finally getting he's always gotten the recognition, but to get a trophy to back that up is always just great to see.
Oh yeah, it's something he's been trying to get for quite a while, and it's cool to see him lift a trophy, especially overcoming a Korean team. I just looked at the calendar and schedule, and it looks like LCS is 4 weeks away, so I guess we can start the countdown, but I think it's starting to become like actually happening, so I'm glad that MSI is over. They're going to get a short break, and then we're going to be diving into LCS again, probably in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm really excited. As great as MSI is, there's nothing like seeing Cloud9 League of Legends back in action. I'm really curious to see how the team is going to try and improve after the fiasco of spring. I think that the team, I believe they're scrimming right now. I think they took like a couple weeks off, but I think around the time MSI was finishing, I think they were saying how scrims had started back up. So they're looking to, you know, get back into the swing of things. I think that spring was a really good teaching tool to just kind of say like, okay, here's what you did right, but here's also what you did wrong. And what they did wrong was pretty clearly outlined. So I think that they have a lot that they can work on to understand how they can improve. So I think that there is stuff to be there. I'm really excited to see how Sneaky handles Kasaya on the main stage. I am really excited to see if Jensen can become the mid laner that really takes over games again, because in spring he was more of the supportive mid laner to try to help Licorice out. And I think it's time to put Jensen back in the carry pants and just let everyone kind of make sure that he stays alive. Because I want to see carry Jensen. I want to see Daddy Jensen again.
Yeah, it's time to make Jensen great again. There was a period of time, mostly season 6, where we criticized him a lot for focusing too much on the lane and not roaming around the map enough. But it was kind of sad seeing him not dominate those statistics quite as heavily this past season. Though I don't think that he is the majority of the problem.
Oh no, not at all. I think him
Yeah.
and Sneaky were actually the two big pillars that even were able to make Cloud9, even in the games that they lost, at least stay somewhat competitively in. I think their biggest issues were indecisiveness from Sven, as well as Smoothie making some really questionable plays and Licorice just not being seasoned enough on the big boy competitive stage to do some of the things that Impact did. Because Impact was the one that was doing really good late game shot calling. He was really good at managing sort of the map macro wise, and that's why I loved how C9 looked on a map level when Impact was playing. But Impact is gone, so now they're having a greener. Licorice is really good at being aggressive, and he's really good at laning. But I think when it comes to maybe more of the macro perspective and some of the other larger perspectives of the league, I think he's still a little rough on. And I think those are the things that made Cloud9 a lot more vulnerable, especially when the meta shifted, and we had to really catch up on that and really play to a lot more of our weaknesses.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like yeah. The meta didn't quite align with where we were at the end of the season, but I'm just most excited to see how Licorice is going to evolve as a top lane. Or we, um, he hasn't shown the consistency that we need of him, but he showed the peaks that we would hope and expect of a Cloud9 top laner, and because of that, I'm actually excited to see how develops. I'm expecting some decent bad performances again this coming split, just because I don't feel like this team is overall solid on the top side of the map, but and that's partially due to him, but I'm just excited to see how he's going to evolve and hopefully carry Cloud9 into the future, since we don't have contracts to do that for us anymore.
No, yeah, I definitely think the potential is there for Licorice and for Svenskeren as well. I think Svenskeren, in the early games, Svenskeren and the team look really sharp. I think it's when it comes to mid and late game decision making is when Sven really falls off, because he's a very instinctual player, and instincts play a lot in the early game. And I think once it gets, the game starts to kind of go later and later, it becomes more of, do I go to Baron, yes or no? And it's more of coin flip decisions, and I think that's where he really struggles. But the potential is there for Licorice and Sven. We've seen points where it's like, yeah, they're looking really good. Even at the second half of that spring season, I think it's mostly, smoothing out the rough edges, trying to improve in the areas that you were really weak at, and then going from there. So I think, Cloud9 can definitely be strong. I think it's just a matter of, can Reaper mold them into a strong form, considering all of the changes to the game that have happened since the last time they played.
Oh yeah, and it just seems like a Riot keeps throwing out a more changes at them. So I guess I will just have to see how they're going to adapt to them.
Yeah, for sure. And we will definitely get back to Cloud9 League of Legends as LCS starts June 16th. So make sure to mark your calendars. Our first week's matches are against Clutch and Optic, so it should be a really nice kind of easing up. We're not playing against TSM or Team Liquid or any, like Echo Fox or 100 Thieves or anything. We're playing against, at least from spring standings, we're playing against some of the maybe the easier opponents. So I think this will be a really good kind of easing into the season. We can maybe feel out kind of how the meta is, see where teams are going, see how our team is going, and then really kind of ease into the season instead of having to like jump into the deep end.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's one of the more ideal starts that we could get. Clutch is still good, but we'll finally get to see how Optic is going to measure up against a decent team. So I still think Optic is a sleeper. So I guess we're just going to have to see. I mean, it's 4 weeks away. I haven't thought too much about it yet, but it's definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah. But I think that's going to be all for us today. So thank you for listening to Bodied, Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to @C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Questions might be answered on the next podcast or whenever we can find you on Twitter. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.